The alien king's screams of rage shook the palace walls as the viewscreen displayed Earth's glittering blue oceans and verdant continents. These humans dare defy our supremacy. Their primitive rock will make a fine addition to my collection of conquered worlds. The Norcadian king snarled, smashing a clawed fist on his throne's armrest. The king's advisor cowered, his forked tongue flickering nervously as he spoke. My liege, Earth has petitioned to join the Galactic Union. The humans must prove themselves in the challenges before they can be considered. The king's eyes narrowed. Then we shall crush them in the arena and show the galaxy the folly of their arrogance. He turned to his guards. Summon the champions. These humans will learn their place. Light years away, Raymond Ward read the message from General Graves, his jaw clenching. Humanity's fate hung in the balance. The Galactic Union was their only hope against the hostile races that preyed on the weak. Raymond had spent years running from his past, drowning his demons in blood and booze. Now he had a chance to make things right. The challenges would push him to his limits, but he was no stranger to pain. He had been forged in the crucible of war, his body enhanced by cutting-edge technology. As Raymond boarded the transport to the Norcadian homeworld, he knew the stakes couldn't be higher. If he failed, Earth would be left defenseless, easy prey for the predators of the galaxy. But if he succeeded, humanity would take its rightful place among the stars. Raymond cracked his knuckles, a grim smile spreading across his face. The Norcadians had no idea what was coming for them. The transport ship shuddered as it breached the Norcadian atmosphere. Raymond stared out the viewport at the harsh, unforgiving landscape below. Scorching deserts stretched to the horizon, broken only by towering mountain ranges and sprawling industrial cities, belching smoke into the orange sky. The ship touched down on a landing pad outside the capital city. Raymond stepped out into the oppressive heat, squinting against the glare of the alien sun. A tall, lithe Norcadian with oily black scales and cunning yellow eyes approached him. Raymond Ward, I presume. The Norcadian's voice was smooth and cultured, with a hint of danger lurking beneath the surface. I am Jackson, your assigned handler for the duration of the competition. Follow me. Jackson led Raymond through the winding streets of the city, past towering skyscrapers and bustling markets. They arrived at a heavily guarded compound on the outskirts of the city, the Champions' Quarters. Inside, Raymond found himself in a large common room. 3 other figures occupied the space. A hulking, four-armed brute from a war-torn planet sat in the corner, sharpening a wicked-looking blade. A lithe, insectoid assassin with a reputation for ruthlessness perched on the back of a chair, their compound eyes glittering. And in the shadows, a mysterious hooded figure lurked, their face obscured. Jackson clapped his hands, drawing their attention. Champions, welcome to the Norcadian homeworld. You are here to compete in a series of challenges to prove your worth to the Galactic Union. Each challenge will test a different aspect of your abilities. Strength, cunning, and skill will all be required to emerge victorious. Raymond listened intently as Jackson outlined the rules of the competition. 3 challenges, each more difficult than the last. Elimination was a constant threat. Only one champion would emerge victorious. The first challenge was announced, a brutal obstacle course through the Norcadian wilderness, a test of strength and endurance. Raymond felt a surge of adrenaline. This was what he had trained for. The champions were transported to the starting line, a barren stretch of desert at the base of a towering mountain range. Raymond eyed the course ahead. Jagged rocks, shifting sands, and poisonous flora dotted the landscape. In the distance, he could see the glint of metal, the finish line. The starting gun fired, and the champions lurched into motion. Raymond sprinted forward, his enhanced muscles propelling him over the uneven terrain. The four-armed brute quickly took the lead, his massive frame barreling through the obstacles with ease. Raymond pushed himself harder, drawing on his military training and years of combat experience. He leapt over a chasm, rolled under a tangle of thorny vines, and clambered up a sheer rock face, his fingers finding purchase in the tiniest of cracks. The insectoid assassin darted ahead, their lithe forms slipping through the narrowest of gaps. The hooded figure brought up the rear, their movements deliberate and measured. Raymond could feel the searing heat sapping his strength, but he pushed through the pain. He had to succeed, for Earth, for humanity. As he neared the finish line, Raymond caught a glimpse of movement in his peripheral vision, a flash of scales, a glint of metal. He turned to see a massive predator, all teeth and claws, lunging toward him. Raymond reacted on instinct, dropping into a roll and coming up with a jagged rock clutched in his fist. The predator's jaws snapped shut inches from his face, its fetid breath washing over him. Raymond brought the rock down on the creature's skull with all his might, feeling the bone crunch beneath the blow. The predator slumped to the ground and Raymond staggered to his feet. He crossed the finish line, his lungs burning and his muscles screaming in protest. The four-armed brute had finished first, but Raymond had secured second place. As he gulped down water and tried to catch his breath, Raymond overheard a snippet of conversation between Jackson and an Orcadian official. "Indeed," Jackson replied, his voice low and calculating. "The challenges will reveal his true nature and the nature of his species. We will learn their strengths and, more importantly, their weaknesses." Raymond's suspicions crystallized into a chilling realization. The challenges weren't just a test of a champion's abilities, they were a way for the Norcadians to gather intelligence on the prospective member races. And Raymond had just shown them a glimpse of what humanity was capable of. He would have to be careful to play his cards close to his chest. The fate of his species hung in the balance. The next morning, Raymond awoke with a sense of unease. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to these challenges than met the eye. He made his way to the arena for the second challenge, his mind still turning over the overheard conversation from the day before. Jackson greeted the champions with a sharp-toothed smile. "Welcome to the second challenge. Today we will test your mental acuity and problem-solving skills. You will each be placed in a holographic simulation of a crumbling city, isolated from one another. Your task is to navigate the urban landscape, solve the puzzles, and overcome the obstacles to reach the central tower." Raymond stepped into the simulation pod, the metal door hissing shut behind him. The world dissolved into a shimmer of pixels, then resolved into a dystopian cityscape. Crumbling skyscrapers loomed overhead, their windows shattered and facades cracked. The streets were choked with rubble and abandoned vehicles. He set off through the winding streets, his enhanced senses on high alert. He climbed over twisted metal and leapt across gaping chasms, his mind racing as he worked to decipher the cryptic clues scattered throughout the simulation. As he progressed deeper into the city, Raymond noticed glitches and anomalies that seemed to target him specifically. Walls would flicker and change position, bridges would collapse just as he set foot on them, and holographic enemies would materialize out of thin air. Someone was trying to sabotage his efforts. Raymond gritted his teeth and pushed forward, determined to uncover the truth. He hacked into a malfunctioning data terminal and stumbled upon a hidden cache of files. His eyes widened as he scanned the contents. Classified information about Earth's military capabilities, troop deployments, and strategic weaknesses. The Norcadians were using the challenges to gather intelligence for an invasion. Suddenly, a hooded figure dropped from a nearby rooftop, landing in a crouch beside him. Raymond tensed, ready for a fight, but the figure held up their hands in a gesture of peace. "I'm not your enemy," a female voice said. The figure pushed back her hood, revealing the face of a young Norcadian woman with deep green scales and piercing amber eyes. "My name is Zara, and I'm part of a rebel faction working to overthrow the corrupt leadership of my people." Raymond eyed her warily. "Why should I trust you?" "Because we both want the same thing, to stop the Norcadians from using these challenges to plan an invasion of Earth." Zara tapped at the data terminal, bringing up a schematic of the central tower. "I have a plan, but I need your help." Raymond hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "What do you need me to do?" As Zara laid out her plan, Raymond felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps with the help of an unexpected ally, he could not only win the challenges, but also uncover the truth behind the Norcadians' sinister plot. Together they set off through the holographic city, two unlikely partners united by a common goal. The central tower loomed ahead, a beacon of both triumph and treachery. Raymond steeled himself for the challenges to come, knowing that the fate of Earth and the Galactic Union hung in the balance. Raymond stepped into the arena, the roar of the bloodthirsty crowd washing over him. The final challenge was upon him, a brutal gladiatorial combat against his fellow champions. He knew the stakes were higher than ever. Not only was Earth's fate on the line, but he had to expose the Norcadians' sinister plot. Across the sand-strewn battlefield, the insectoid assassin crouched, its compound eyes glittering with malice. Raymond tightened his grip on his weapons, a pair of sleek, plasma-edged blades. The assassin moved first, darting forward with blinding speed. Raymond met its charge head-on, their weapons clashing in a shower of sparks. They danced a deadly waltz, trading blows and feints, each seeking an opening in the other's defenses. The assassin's blades dripped with a sickly green venom, and Raymond knew a single scratch could spell his doom. He fought with a desperate intensity, his enhanced reflexes and strength pushed to their limits. In a sudden burst of speed, Raymond slipped inside the assassin's guard, his blades finding flesh. The insectoid crumpled, ichor oozing from its wounds. Raymond staggered back, his vision blurring as the assassin's poison coursed through his veins. He had emerged victorious, but at a heavy cost. The crowd's cheers turned to gasps as the four-armed brute strode into the arena, his body a grotesque fusion of flesh and metal. Raymond realized with a sinking feeling that the brute had been augmented with illegal cybernetics. This was no longer a fair fight. They clashed in a titanic struggle, the brute's enhanced strength and speed more than a match for Raymond's skills. Blow after blow rained down on Raymond, his body battered and bruised, but he refused to yield, drawing on every last ounce of his determination. As they grappled, locked in a deadly embrace, Raymond caught a flicker of movement in the stands. Zara, her face a mask of concentration, was working furiously at a portable data terminal. Suddenly, the arena's view screens flickered to life, broadcasting a damning montage of evidence, exposing the Norcadians' treachery to the entire Galactic Union. The arena erupted into chaos. Norcadian officials shouted orders, desperate to silence Raymond and Zara. The other champions, realizing the true nature of the competition, began to turn on their handlers. In the midst of the pandemonium, Raymond and the brute's eyes met. A moment of understanding passed between them. They were pawns in a larger game, their rivalry stoked for the Norcadians' benefit. The brute gave a curt nod, and as one they turned to face the oncoming wave of Norcadian soldiers and security drones. Back to back, they fought their way through the throng, Raymond's blades flashing and the brute's massive fists crushing metal and bone. As they burst out of the arena into the harsh Norcadian sunlight, Zara's voice crackled over their comlinks. The Galactic Union has placed sanctions on the Norcadian government. Peacekeeping forces are on their way, but we can't stop now. We have to uncover the full extent of their conspiracy before it's too late. Raymond and his unlikely allies plunged into the labyrinthine streets of the Norcadian capital, the sounds of battle echoing behind them. They had won a small victory, but the war for the galaxy's future had only just begun. Raymond and his companions slipped through the shadows of the Norcadian capital, their footsteps echoing in the narrow alleyways. The stench of decay and desperation hung heavy in the air as they navigated the seedy underbelly of the city. Zara led them to a nondescript door, its metal surface pitted and rusted. She knocked twice, paused, then knocked 3 more times. The door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit room filled with a motley assortment of rebels. Some bore the scars of past battles, while others had the haunted look of those who had seen too much. A grizzled Norcadian with a missing eye stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over Raymond and his allies. "You must be the champions," he rasped. "I am Vaxon, leader of the Resistance. We've been expecting you." As Vaxon and his rebels shared their intelligence, a grim picture began to emerge. The Norcadian king, a ruthless tyrant known as Zortex, had been secretly siphoning resources from the Galactic Union to fund a clandestine weapons program. His goal was to create an army of unstoppable super soldiers, loyal only to him, and use them to subjugate the other member races. Vaxon nodded, his good eye glinting in the dim light. "We have a plan. There's a network of secret passages beneath the palace, used by the king's spies and assassins. We can use them to bypass the main defenses and reach the heart of Zortex's operation." As night fell, Raymond, Zara, and a hand-picked team of rebels set out on their dangerous mission. They slipped into the palace grounds, avoiding the patrols of elite guards and the watchful eyes of surveillance drones. The ancient stone walls loomed above them, a silent testament to the Norcadians' long history of conquest and oppression. They descended into the labyrinth of secret passages, the air growing colder and damper with each step. The tunnels twisted and turned, a disorienting maze designed to confuse and trap the unwary. Raymond and his companions moved with caution, their senses heightened by the ever-present threat of discovery. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the palace, they stumbled upon a hidden laboratory. The room was bathed in an eerie green glow, emanating from a series of containment tanks lining the walls. Inside each tank floated a grotesque figure, a fusion of Norcadian biology and advanced technology. Raymond approached one of the tanks, his eyes widening as he realized the true nature of Zortex's plan. The Norcadian scientists had been experimenting with a powerful new energy source, one that could imbue their soldiers with superhuman strength, speed, and resilience. With an army of these enhanced warriors at his command, Zortex would be unstoppable. Suddenly, the door to the laboratory hissed open and a familiar figure stepped inside. Jackson, his scales glistening in the otherworldly light, regarded Raymond and his companions with a calculating gaze. "I see you've discovered the king's little secret," Jackson said, his voice smooth and cold as ice. Raymond tensed, ready for a fight, but Jackson held up his hands in a placating gesture. "Relax, Raymond. I'm not here to stop you. In fact, I've been working with the rebels for years, feeding them information and waiting for the right moment to strike." Jackson stepped forward, his eyes blazing with a fierce determination. "I know the king's plans and I know the layout of the palace. With my help, we can put an end to his madness and save the Galactic Union from his tyranny." Raymond hesitated for a moment, weighing the risks and rewards of trusting Jackson. But as he looked into the Norcadian's eyes, he saw a reflection of his own determination, a shared desire to protect the innocent and bring justice to the galaxy. Together, they delved deeper into the palace, armed with Jackson's knowledge and driven by a newfound sense of purpose. The fate of Earth and the entire Galactic Union hung in the balance, and Raymond knew that failure was not an option. Raymond and his team crept through the winding corridors of Zortex's palace, their footsteps muffled by the thick carpets. Jackson led the way, his intimate knowledge of the layout guiding them past patrols and security checkpoints. As they neared the throne room, the resistance intensified. Heavily armored guards poured from hidden alcoves, their energy rifles spitting searing bolts of plasma. Raymond dove for cover, his own weapon barking in response. Beside him, Zara and Thrax laid down a blistering suppressing fire, their shots precise and deadly. They fought their way forward, inch by bloody inch, the air thick with the stench of ozone and charred flesh. Raymond's heart pounded in his chest as he ducked and weaved, his reflexes pushed to their limits. A bolt sizzled past his cheek, leaving a trail of scorched skin in its wake. With a final, desperate push, they breached the throne room doors, the heavy metal slamming to the ground with a resounding clang. But as they charged inside, weapons at the ready, they found only emptiness and echoes. Their holographic image flickered to life before them, Zortex's cruel visage towering over the room. "You're too late, champions," he sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "While you were busy playing heroes, I was setting the stage for the galaxy's downfall." The truth hit Raymond like a physical blow. The challenges, the conspiracy, the super soldier program, they had all been distractions, a smokescreen to hide Zortex's true intentions. The Norcadian king had never intended to conquer the galaxy through force of arms, but rather to destroy it from within. Even now my agents are in place, ready to strike at the heart of the Galactic Union, Zortex gloated. Chaos will reign, and from the ashes a new order will rise, one that bows to me and me alone. The hologram winked out, leaving Raymond and his companions in stunned silence. Jackson was the first to recover, his fingers flying over a nearby data terminal. "We have to move fast," he said, his voice tight with urgency. "If we can decrypt Zortex's files, we might still have a chance to stop his agents before it's too late." They worked feverishly, their minds racing as they sifted through layers of encryption and misdirection. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge, a network of sleeper cells scattered across key member worlds, each tasked with a specific mission of sabotage and destruction. Raymond felt a cold knot of dread settle in his stomach as he realized the scale of Zortex's plan. If even half of these cells were successful, the Galactic Union would be crippled, perhaps beyond repair. "We need to split up," Zara said, her eyes hard with determination. "Each of us will take a team and hunt down a different cell. We'll coordinate our efforts through encrypted channels and regroup once the threat has been neutralized." Raymond nodded, his jaw set with grim resolve. He turned to Thrax, the massive warrior looming at his side. "Looks like it's you and me, big guy," he said, a wry smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "We're headed to the heart of the Union itself." Thrax grunted, his forearms flexing with anticipation. "Let's crack some skulls and save the galaxy." As they prepared to depart, each to their own dangerous mission, Raymond couldn't shake the feeling that they were just scratching the surface of something much larger and more insidious. Zortex's machinations, as terrible as they were, felt like pieces of a puzzle they had yet to fully assemble. But there would be time for deeper investigations later. Now they had a job to do, and a galaxy to save. Raymond and Thrax boarded a sleek, fast courier ship, its engines humming with barely contained power. As they rocketed through the void, the glittering stars blurring into streaks of light, Raymond pored over the intelligence they had gathered, trying to piece together a clearer picture of their target. The sleeper agent they were hunting was embedded deep within the Galactic Union's bureaucracy, a mole who had spent years worming their way into positions of influence and trust. According to Zortex's files, they were poised to sabotage a crucial vote in the Union's governing council, one that would determine the fate of trillions. As they approached the capital world, a gleaming jewel of a planet that served as the seat of galactic power, Raymond felt a growing sense of unease. He had spent years operating on the fringes of society, a lone wolf who trusted no one but himself. Now, he was walking into the heart of the system he had once scorned, a system he knew was rotten to the core. They docked at a private landing pad, their false identities and forged credentials, allowing them to slip past the layers of security that shrouded the capital in a veil of secrecy. Raymond tugged at the collar of his finely tailored suit, feeling like an imposter in his own skin. Thrax, for his part, seemed to relish the chance to play dress-up. The massive warrior had somehow squeezed himself into a custom-made suit of his own, the fabric straining over his bulging muscles. He grinned at Raymond, his fangs glinting in the harsh, artificial light. Raymond nodded, his mind already racing ahead to the challenges that lay before them. They had to navigate a labyrinth of political intrigue and bureaucratic red tape, all while trying to unmask a traitor who had spent years perfecting their disguise. Their first stop was a lavish reception hall, where the cream of galactic society mingled and schemed over glasses of sparkling wine and plates of exotic delicacies. Raymond and Thrax worked the room, their cover identities allowing them to rub elbows with senators, corporate magnates, and high-ranking military officials. As they listened to the idle chatter and veiled innuendos, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. Whispers of backroom deals, of favors traded, and secrets bought and sold. A web of corruption that extended far beyond the borders of the Norcadian Empire, ensnaring even the most seemingly upstanding members of the Galactic Union. And at the center of it all, a shadowy cabal of power brokers who pulled the strings from behind the scenes. Individuals who saw the chaos and destruction wrought by Zortex not as a threat, but as an opportunity to consolidate their own grip on power. Raymond felt a cold sweat break out on his brow as the true scope of the conspiracy began to dawn on him. They weren't just fighting against a single tyrant or a rogue faction, but against a rot that had taken hold at the very heart of the galactic order. He exchanged a glance with Thrax, seeing his own grim realization mirrored in the warrior's eyes. They were just two men, standing against a tide of corruption and deceit that threatened to sweep away everything they held dear. But they were also champions, forged in the crucible of battle and tempered by the fires of adversity, and they would not go down without a fight. Raymond and Thrax navigated the labyrinthine corridors of the Galactic Union's bureaucracy, their every move shadowed by the specter of the Shadow Syndicate's influence. As they dug deeper, the web of corruption seemed to grow ever more tangled, the threads of deceit and manipulation weaving through every level of society. It was in a dimly lit back room of a seedy bar, hidden away in the capital's underbelly, that they first encountered the Overseer. The figure sat shrouded in darkness, their features obscured by a heavy cowl. Only their eyes were visible, glinting with a cold, calculating intelligence. "You've been causing quite a stir, Mr. Ward," the Overseer said, their voice a rasping whisper. "The Syndicate has taken notice of your efforts." Raymond tensed, his hand instinctively reaching for the weapon concealed beneath his jacket. Beside him, Thrax shifted his bulk, ready to spring into action at a moment's notice. They began to speak, their words painting a picture of a galaxy in the grip of a shadowy cabal, a hidden hand that had been pulling the strings of power for centuries. The Shadow Syndicate, they called themselves, a network of influence and control that extended to every corner of known space. The Norcadian king was merely a pawn in their game, the Overseer said, a means to destabilize the Galactic Union and pave the way for their ultimate takeover. But he was not the first, nor will he be the last. Raymond felt a chill run down his spine as the scope of the conspiracy began to dawn on him. The Syndicate's influence ran deeper than he had ever imagined, their tendrils reaching into the highest echelons of power on countless worlds. The Overseer leaned back, steepling their fingers. "Because, Mr. Thrax, I believe you have a role to play in the coming storm. The Syndicate has taken an interest in you, Mr. Ward. They see your potential, your unique set of skills and abilities. They believe you could be a valuable asset to their cause." Raymond's mind raced as he tried to process the implications of the Overseer's words. The Shadow Syndicate, the true power behind the Norcadian conspiracy, was recruiting him. It was an opportunity to strike at the heart of the enemy, to bring down the corrupt system from within. But it was also a dangerous game, one that could easily backfire if he made a single misstep. The Syndicate was not known for its forgiveness, and the price of failure would be high. The Overseer leaned forward, their eyes boring into Raymond's. "Join us, Mr. Ward. Join the Shadow Syndicate and wield power beyond your wildest dreams. Refuse and face the consequences." Raymond hesitated, torn between his loyalty to Earth and his desire to uncover the truth. He glanced at Thrax, seeing the conflicting emotions playing out on the warrior's face. In that moment, Raymond made his decision. He would join the Shadow Syndicate, but not as a loyal foot soldier. He would be a double agent, working to bring down the cabal from within. "I'm in," Raymond said, his voice steady and resolute. The Overseer nodded, a hint of a smile playing at the corners of their mouth. "Excellent. Your initiation begins now." The next few weeks passed in a blur of grueling physical and mental challenges, designed to break Raymond's will and ensure his obedience to the Syndicate. He was pushed to his limits, his every weakness exploited, his every fear laid bare. But Raymond persevered, drawing on his military training and inner strength to maintain his cover. He played the role of the loyal recruit, never letting his true intentions slip. As he rose through the ranks of the Syndicate, Raymond began to sabotage their operations from the inside. He leaked information to his allies on the outside, planted the seeds of rebellion among the lower ranks, and sowed discord and confusion wherever he could. But even as he worked to bring down the syndicate, Raymond couldn't shake the feeling that he was only scratching the surface of a much larger and more insidious conspiracy. The syndicate's influence seemed to extend far beyond the Galactic Union, its tendrils reaching into the darkest corners of the galaxy. And at the center of it all, the enigmatic figure of the Overseer loomed, their true motives and allegiances still shrouded in mystery. Raymond knew that he would have to confront them eventually to unravel the final threads of the conspiracy and bring the truth to light. But for now he had to focus on the task at hand, on maintaining his cover and gathering the evidence he needed to bring the syndicate to its knees. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and Raymond knew that he could not afford to fail. Zara's heart pounded as she crouched in the shadows of the Norcadian king's secret base, Crix at her side. They had tracked the tyrant to this remote, uncharted world, a desolate rock on the fringes of Norcadian space. The base loomed before them, a fortified bunker bristling with defenses and patrolled by a legion of fanatically loyal soldiers. Crix's compound eyes glittered in the dim light, his mandibles twitching with anticipation. "The king's inner sanctum lies at the heart of the complex," he said, his voice a rasping whisper. "We must navigate a gauntlet of traps and automated defenses to reach him." Zara nodded, checking her weapons. They had come too far to turn back now. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance. Together they slipped into the base, their movements silent and precise. They crept through dimly lit corridors, avoiding patrols and disabling security systems with practiced ease. But as they ventured deeper into the bunker, the true nature of the king's machinations began to reveal itself. They stumbled upon a vast laboratory filled with bubbling vats and humming machinery. In the center of the room stood a towering figure, a grotesque hybrid of Norcadian and human DNA, its body rippling with unnatural muscle and its eyes glowing with an eerie, otherworldly light. Zara's breath caught in her throat as she realized the truth. The king had been experimenting with the stolen energy source, using it to create a new form of life, a breed of super soldiers imbued with incredible strength and speed and fanatically loyal to him alone. "He means to use these abominations as the vanguard of his new empire," Crix hissed, his claws flexing. "A force capable of crushing any resistance and ensuring his eternal rule." Zara's grip tightened on her weapon. They had to stop the king, no matter the cost. They pushed deeper into the base, battling past automated turrets and genetically engineered monstrosities that seemed to melt out of the very walls. Every step was a struggle, every moment a desperate fight for survival. At last, they reached the king's inner sanctum, a vast chamber filled with pulsing energy and thrumming machinery. The king himself stood at the center, his body transformed by the same unholy technology that had created his hybrid soldiers. He was a towering figure of raw power and malevolence, his eyes burning with a mad light. "Fools," he snarled, his voice a thundering boom. "You dare to stand against me? I am the future of the Norcadian race, the architect of a new galactic order. Your resistance is futile." Zara and Crix exchanged a glance, a silent understanding passing between them. They knew they were outmatched, that the king's strength and speed far exceeded their own, but they also knew that they had no choice. The fate of countless worlds depended on them. They attacked as one, their weapons blazing, their bodies moving in perfect synchronicity. The king met them head-on, his fists slamming into their flesh with bone-shattering force, his laughter echoing through the chamber. Zara felt her strength ebbing, her body battered and bruised, but still she fought on, driven by a determination that burned hotter than any pain. Beside her, Crix was a blur of motion, his claws raking across the king's flesh, his mandibles snapping at his throat. In a moment of desperate inspiration, Zara saw an opening. She lunged forward, her blade slicing through the air, aiming for the pulsing heart of the machinery that sustained the king's power. But the king was too fast, his hand closing around her wrist, his grip crushing her bones. Crix saw Zara's plight and leapt to her aid. his own body interposing itself between her and the king. The king's fist slammed into Crix's chest, the impact sending him flying across the chamber, his exoskeleton cracking and splitting with a sickening crunch. Zara screamed Crix's name as he fell, his body broken and still. Rage and grief surged through her, a white-hot fury that burned away all fear. With a final, desperate effort, she tore free from the king's grasp and plunged her blade into the heart of the machinery, sending a cascade of sparks and debris flying in all directions. The king let out a howl of rage and pain as the energy that sustained him flickered and died. His body began to wither and decay before Zara's eyes, his flesh sloughing away to reveal the twisted, corrupted thing that lay beneath. Zara staggered back, her breath coming in ragged gasps. She looked to where Crix lay, his body still and lifeless. Tears streamed down her face as she realized the true cost of their victory. Crix had sacrificed himself so that she could live, so that the galaxy might have a chance at freedom. With a heavy heart, Zara gathered the evidence of the king's atrocities and fled the base, leaving behind the shattered remnants of the king's twisted dreams. She knew that her fight was far from over, that the Shadow Syndicate still loomed large over the galaxy. But for now she allowed herself a moment to grieve, to honor the memory of a friend and ally who had given everything for the cause of justice. As she left the base behind, Zara steeled herself for the battles yet to come. She knew that Raymond was still out there, fighting his own war from within the belly of the beast. She could only hope that they would be reunited soon, that together they might finally bring an end to the Shadow Syndicate's reign of tyranny. Raymond and Zara stood shoulder to shoulder as they strode into the heart of the Galactic Union's capital, their faces grim with determination. Thrax loomed behind them, his four arms crossed over his massive chest. They had fought too hard and sacrificed too much to let the Shadow Syndicate escape justice. The halls of the Galactic Council echoed with the murmur of 100 different tongues, as representatives from across the galaxy gathered to hear the evidence against the Syndicate. Raymond and his team took their place at the center of the chamber, the weight of the galaxy's eyes upon them. "Esteemed members of the Council," Raymond began, his voice ringing out clear and strong, "we come before you today not as conquerors or usurpers, but as defenders of the truth. The Shadow Syndicate has manipulated and exploited the peoples of the galaxy for far too long, sowing chaos and reaping the profits of suffering." He gestured to the holographic displays that sprang to life around the chamber, each one depicting a different facet of the Syndicate's crimes. The Norcadian King's secret laboratories, the twisted experiments conducted on sentient beings, the assassinations and coups orchestrated from the shadows. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of shouts and accusations. Some representatives called for the immediate arrest and trial of the Syndicate's leaders, while others, their eyes shifty and their voices hesitant, sought to discredit Raymond's evidence. "Lies!" an Orcadian delegate shouted, his scales flashing in agitation. "This human seeks to sow discord and topple the rightful order of the galaxy." Raymond rounded on the delegate, his eyes flashing with barely contained fury. "The only order the Syndicate seeks to preserve is one that keeps them in power and the rest of us under their boot. How much did they pay you? How many of your own people did you sacrifice for their favor?" The Norcadian recoiled as if struck, and the chamber descended into a frenzy of argument and recrimination. Thrax slammed his fists together, the boom of flesh on flesh echoing like a thunderclap. "Enough," he roared, his voice cutting through the din like a blade. "We came here for justice, not petty bickering. The evidence speaks for itself. The Syndicate must answer for its crimes." But even as the tide of opinion began to turn in their favor, a new figure emerged from the shadows at the edge of the chamber. The Overseer, their face hidden beneath a deep cowl, their voice smooth and honeyed as poison. "Raymond Ward," they purred, "the champion of Earth, the hero of the hour. But how much do you truly know about the world you claim to protect?" The Overseer stepped forward, their robes swirling around them like a living shadow. They raised a hand and a new set of holographic displays sprang to life, each one depicting a different scene of corruption and deceit on Earth itself. "Your leaders have been bought and paid for," the Overseer said, their voice dripping with mock sympathy. Your institutions have been infiltrated and subverted. Earth is as much a pawn of the Syndicate as any Norcadian slave world." Raymond stared at the displays in horror, his mind reeling with the implications. The president shaking hands with a known Syndicate operative, the CEO of a major corporation signing away the rights to a new energy source in exchange for a briefcase full of untraceable credits. Generals and diplomats, scientists and spies, all dancing to the Syndicate's tune. "But it is," the overseer said, their lips curling in a cruel smile. "You have been fighting for a lie, Raymond, a dream of a world that never existed. The Syndicate is the only true power in the galaxy, and it always will be." Raymond felt the weight of the galaxy's eyes upon him, the pressure of 1 billion souls waiting for his response. He closed his eyes, his mind racing with the implications of the overseer's revelations. Earth, his home, the world he had sworn to protect, was just another cog in the Syndicate's machine. The people he had fought for, the ideals he had believed in, all of it a carefully crafted illusion designed to keep him in line. But even as despair threatened to overwhelm him, Raymond felt a flicker of something else deep within his heart, a spark of defiance, of hope, of the unquenchable human spirit that had carried him through the darkest of times. He opened his eyes, his gaze locking with the overseer's. "No," he said, his voice ringing out clear and strong. "I will not let you win. I will not let the Syndicate's lies poison the galaxy any longer." Raymond turned to face the Galactic Council, his eyes blazing with a fierce determination. "I renounce my ties to Earth," he said, his voice unwavering. "I renounce the corrupt leaders who have sold our future to the highest bidder. From this day forward, I fight not for any one world, but for the freedom and dignity of all sentient beings." He raised a fist in the air, his voice rising to a crescendo. "Let this be the dawn of a new era, one of transparency, of cooperation, of true unity among the stars. Let us cast off the shackles of the Syndicate and build a galaxy where every voice is heard, every life is valued, and every dream is possible." The chamber erupted into a roar of approval, 1,000 voices joining as one. Thrax and Zara stood at Raymond's side, their faces alight with pride and determination. The Galactic Council chamber erupted into pandemonium as Raymond's words echoed through the room. The cacophony of shouting and arguing voices blended into a single, discordant roar. Thrax and Zara stood firm at Raymond's side, their faces set with determination as they faced the chaos. "Traitor!" a delegate from a world long enthralled to the Syndicate shouted, his voice quivering with rage. "You would tear down the very foundations of our society." "Those foundations are rotten to the core," Raymond shot back, his eyes blazing, "built on lies, manipulation, and the suffering of countless innocents." Other delegates, emboldened by Raymond's defiance, rose to their feet, their voices joining the chorus of dissent. "The human speaks the truth," a willowy, blue-skinned representative cried out. "For too long, we have been blind to the Syndicate's machinations. No more." The chamber divided as the debate grew more heated, the lines between allies and enemies blurring with each passing moment. Zara leaned in close to Raymond, her voice low and urgent. "We need to move. The longer we stay here, the more time the Syndicate has to regroup and strike back." Raymond nodded, his jaw clenched tight. "Thrax, clear a path, we're leaving." The towering warrior grinned, cracking his knuckles, with pleasure. They fought their way through the throng of arguing delegates, Thrax's bulk and Raymond's fierce determination parting the crowd like a ship cutting through turbulent waters. As they burst out of the chamber and into the marbled halls of the Galactic Union's headquarters, the first tremors of unrest were already spreading. News of Raymond's revelation and the Syndicate's treachery raced across the galaxy like wildfire, sparking protests, riots, and open rebellion on 100 worlds. Syndicate-controlled security forces clashed with angry mobs in the streets, while rival factions within the Galactic Union vied for control in the sudden power vacuum. Amid the chaos, Raymond and his allies fought to stay one step ahead of the Syndicate's agents, who now sought to silence them by any means necessary. They raided hidden bases, intercepted encrypted transmissions, and forged tenuous alliances with those who had once been their enemies. But even as they struck blow after blow against the Syndicate's crumbling empire, Raymond knew that their greatest challenge still lay ahead. The Overseer, ever elusive and cunning, had gone to ground, marshalling the Syndicate's remaining resources for a final, devastating counterattack. The first sign of the coming storm came in the form of a distress call from the Norcadian homeworld. The planet, still reeling from the aftermath of the King's defeat, found itself under siege by a new and terrifying threat. Raymond and his team raced to the planet's surface, only to be confronted by a sight that chilled them to their core. A vast army of hybrid soldiers, their bodies twisted by the King's dark science, marched across the war-torn landscape, their eyes blazing with an unholy red light. At their head a figure that Raymond had hoped never to see again, the Norcadian king, resurrected and empowered by the Overseer's malevolent technology. The battle was joined in the shadow of the ruined palace, Raymond and his allies fighting desperately to hold back the tide of mind-controlled abominations. Zara and Thrax fought with the fury of cornered beasts, their weapons and armor stained with the blood of their foes. But for every hybrid soldier they cut down, 2 more seemed to take its place. The king, his body warped and twisted by the Overseer's dark enhancements, unleashed devastating blasts of energy that scorched the earth and sent Raymond's allies flying. Raymond himself fought like a man possessed, his every blow fueled by a lifetime of rage and pain. He clashed with the king in a whirlwind of blades and fists, their battle carrying them to the very steps of the shattered throne room. But even as he fought, Raymond could feel his strength waning, his body pushed to the limits of its endurance. The king, empowered by the Overseer's dark science, seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment, his blows raining down on Raymond like the hammer of an angry god. In that moment, as the battle raged around him and the fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, Raymond saw with a terrible clarity the path that lay before him. He knew that the only way to defeat the Syndicate, to break their hold over the hybrid army, and the king himself, was to sacrifice everything he had fought for, everything he held dear. With a final defiant roar, Raymond launched himself at the king, his body aglow with the same energy that coursed through his foe's veins. He felt the power of the Overseer's technology surging through him, mingling with his own enhanced physiology in a searing, blinding flash of light. The explosion rocked the battlefield, a shockwave of force and energy that sent friend and foe alike tumbling to the ground. When the smoke cleared, the hybrid army lay still, their eyes dark and lifeless. The king, his body shattered and broken, lay unmoving at the foot of his shattered throne. And Raymond, the hero who had given everything to save the galaxy from the Syndicate's grasp, was gone, his body consumed in the inferno of his own making. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.